Tonight on the show, we will go over some fascinating stories and trials. Tonight on the show, we'll go over the woman charged in her fiance's murder. They're calling it the Kayak trial. Two officers in Louisiana charged in the death of a 6-year-old autistic baby. At least the baby is believed to be autistic. There was a suspect behind bars, supposedly in Texas, for shooting a judge. We'll talk about that. The judge will let texting with reference to the hot car death trial. We'll ask our panel if that's prejudicial or not. We'll also go over the prep rape trial, which has been getting plenty of exposure. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from Jacksonville, Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a certified forensic expert. There is the one and only Joseph Scott Morgan. Good evening, Joseph, and welcome back to the King Jordan Radio Show. How are you?
Hey, good evening. I dig the bumper music, man. I dig the bumper music. Yeah.
You dig that AC/DC?
Hey, that's cool. I can listen to AC/DC all night long, man. It gets me fired up. I used to do autopsies while listening to AC/DC, so kind of cool stuff. But good to be with you guys, and welcome to all your fans that are listening out there.
Let's go out to New York City. He's a New York City defense attorney, Bronx in particular. You could see him on Nancy Grace, on Ashley Banfield. His name is Alex Sanchez, a good person. And if you need an attorney in the New York area, don't hesitate to dial this person. Good evening, Alex. How are you?
Jordan, how are you? And I love that introduction. And you keep making introductions like that, I'll be on here every week, if not every day. So thank you for that.
AC/DC.
But great to be here, and I look forward to a really entertaining show.
No question. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, he covered the Jodi Arias trial from A to Z. He was featured on Dateline, as he's been on Nancy Grace plenty of time, HLN. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome back out of Phoenix, Arizona, Mr. Dwane Cates. Good evening, Dwane. How are you?
Great, Jordan. How are you this evening? Hey, and I like your intro music. That's my cell phone ringtone. So for a second there,
really?
I thought my phone was ringing. It really is. Yeah. And I'll tell you a funny story. We have these cattle calls where they call you up to the podium, and I was walking up to the podium and I forgot to mute my phone and it started ringing. Started playing AC/DC Back in Black, and I got up to the podium and the judge goes, "Oh, I see, Mr. Cates, you have walk-up music." And I said, "Yeah, didn't you get the memo? We're all supposed to provide our own walk-up music now, Judge."
No question. How is it over there in the Arizona area?
It's awesome. It's a little chilly for us. It's down in the 60s.
Oh, it's chilly.
Oh, it's freezing over there. You got to get tough there, man. And 60.
It's going to get to the point where I'm going to have to put the roof up on my car.
Oh,
man, you'd never survive down here in New York City, man, because it gets cold.
So I was born and raised in Wyoming, so I know what cold is.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let's start out with the prep school rape trial. Here is the sentencing. On the other side, I want to ask you guys if the punishment fits the crime.
There were late developments today in the high school case making national headlines. The young man convicted of sexually assaulting a freshman girl at St. Paul's in New Hampshire. Today he was silent, motionless as he learned his fate. His parents had begged for mercy. ABC's Gio Benitez with what the judge decided.
20-year-old Owen Labrie saying a quiet prayer at his sentencing today, convicted in August for sexually assaulting a 15-year-old freshman girl in the dark science building of their elite prep school. The victim breaking down on the stand. We are distorting her voice. Prosecutors argued it was part of a so-called school tradition, the senior salute, graduating seniors spending time with younger students, sometimes intimately. They claimed Labrie was trying to rack up sexual conquests as part of a game. The jury acquitted him of the most serious charge, felony rape, but found him guilty of misdemeanor sexual assault and of using email and Facebook to lure the underage girl. His victim, in a video statement today, saying she has been harassed for coming forward.
What he did to me made me feel like I didn't belong on this planet and that I would be better off dead.
Labrie says he'd never forced himself on the girl, his mother begging for mercy. The defense submitting pictures of him as a young boy and visiting Harvard, where they say he planned to study divinity. The judge calling Labrie a very good liar, saying his 15-year-old victim was not able to consent.
That's the crime you were convicted of. Engaging in sexual penetration with someone who is not old enough to know how to handle it.
Labrie faced 11 years behind bars, but was sentenced to 1, afterwards embracing his family with a smile.
And tonight, David, Owen Labrie is actually out on bail as he pursues an appeal. But after court today, he did have to officially register as a sex offender. He could be on that list for the rest of his life, David.
Okay, Dwane, Kate, let me start with you. First, 2 things. The 1-year deal, do you think that's fair? A, and B, the fact that he has to register as a sex offender, I mean, he was like 19 or 18 and she was allegedly 15, 16. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the 1 year in prison, I mean, what you have to understand is when we're dealing with kids. I mean, an 18-year-old is a kid. And the part of their brain, that says maybe I shouldn't do this hasn't formed yet. That hasn't formed till you're like 25. That's why insurance companies give you breaks on their insurance when they turn 25, because the part of your brain that says maybe I shouldn't do this starts working. And and again, I think what he did wasn't right, and not to discount what happened to the girl at all. But again, these are kids, and he made a horrible mistake, and sex offender registration is a lifetime sentence. I mean, everywhere he goes, that's going to follow him. I mean, his prospects for jobs. I mean, he can't. I mean, his world just got a lot smaller because of that sex offender registration.
So you're okay in essence with the 1 year, but the fact that he has to register for the rest of his life, that's pushing it. You would say, right?
Well, I mean, here's the thing that I don't agree in general with the sex offender registration. It's gotten to the point where they're making so many people register that you pull up a map of your neighborhood of the registered sex offenders, and you'll be shocked at how many there are. I mean, there's sometimes when you've got these young kids that have an issue like this, that they should be able to review that when they're 25, 26, 28, and take them off if they're if they've not gotten in any further trouble or anything. Because again, if it's a 50-year-old that a child molester, well then yeah, I mean, but when you're dealing with an 18-year-old, to give them essentially a scarlet letter for the rest of their life is pretty brutal.
And you represented somebody, and you got them acquitted, right? Or
I have. I mean, didn't even go. I mean, I have people that are wrongfully accused all the time, but I've had lots of cases where I've had, I had a 17-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl. The girl lied on Facebook, said she was 17, and they had consensual sex, and my client ended up having to register as a sex offender.
Interesting. And now, before we get to Alex, one more thing. You did tell us on the show that you do believe that certain sex offenders can be cured. Now, you stated that not the, quote, heavy ones, i.e., I guess, Jared from Subway, but you do feel like that there are cures for some of them.
It's not that I feel that. I mean, that's the research. Okay, the research in the area is that that sex offender treatment is successful in many cases. it just depends on what the sex crime is, okay? And it depends on, there's a lot of factors in there. But the people that paint sex offenders in one brush that says, they're all pedophiles and they all can never be cured and they're always going to recommit, that's just not a correct statement.
Interesting. Alex Sanchez, so say you.
I'll tell you that sex offender list, that thing is, you never want to get on that list. First off, if you've ever looked at it, I was just looking the other day on that list. They put your picture on that list. They put your home address. They put your place of work, the car you drive, your license plate number, put the crime that you were convicted of, or the age of the person that the offense was committed against, the sentence you got. It is horrible to be on there, and it's very easy to look someone up. So, if you get on that list, you're better off going to jail for 2 or 3 years than getting on that list, let me tell you.
Really?
And I agree with Dwane, because this essentially, at least in this case here, it essentially was 2 young people that engaged in consensual sex, except for the fact that she was 15 years old. But if you looked at the underlying facts of this case, she was looking to go out with them. She was talking about, I'll just perform oral sex on them. I'll do this and I'll do that. And
she called him after the alleged rape. She spoke to him on Facebook.
And then the girl comes in court and starts crying like she's some horrible victim of some, brutal rapist. I don't really see it that way. You know what? The jury didn't see it that way. The jury basically saw it as consensual sex, but for the fact that she was legally unable to consent due to age. But he goes on a sex offender list. And that's a very oppressive place to be on. As Dwane said, your world gets very small, and it's going to get small. You're restricted from where you can live. You can't live like within, 1,000 feet of a park. Sometimes you can't go into parks. You can't hang out by bus stops where kids get on buses.
Can't go by schools.
In some states, let me tell you, in some states, sex offenders, they have no place to live, and the Department of Probation is referring them to live in a homeless shelter under a bridge. So, I'm not for sex offenders, but, there's got to be some equity somewhere along the line. And I hope that, the justice system begins to adjust to this inequity.
Yeah, there are strong rape trials. I don't think this is one of them. So say you, Joseph Scott Morgan.
Hey, my thought relative to this case, a couple of things. First off, I found it was very interesting that it seemed as though the jury did an about-face in this case when it came to the testimony of the victim in this case. They had a shot at going for 11 years, and the defendant wound up penalized essentially for having sex with a minor, and which is a misdemeanor count, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong. As I previously stated, I am in no way a lawyer. But then his dealings with attempting to use an electronic device to lure this underage person into, a sexual relationship. That's kind of broadly stroked. And then it goes to the second point. My 2 colleagues here tonight have both mentioned this idea that the law is applied with very broad strokes when it comes to sex offender. And one of the things that comes to mind for most people when you hear the term sex offender, you think of some grizzled old man wearing an overcoat that flashes children, at a playground, or some low life like this. You're talking about a lot of kids that in some states, depending upon